It's good, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, they did it. They pulled it off. Touchdown. Okay, listen. That was a blast to watch. I only saw the first episode. It was the first thing I did today. And as soon as that episode wrapped, I'm like, I gotta go talk about it, all right? But I want to let everybody know, for those of you that have not seen the One Piece Netflix yet, if you haven't watched it yet, if for whatever reason you're like, I gotta wait to see what Tekking and Barry say about the show before I watch it. No, stop this video right now and go watch the episode. It will be worth your time if you are a One Piece fan. And if you're anything like me, you will have fun and be grinning ear to ear while watching this. Okay, it was great. So this is how we're gonna do this, all right? Because I know they released them in batches, which doesn't exactly cohere to like, oh, okay, I could just one episode per week. That's convenient. No, okay, so I wanted to get my first reaction out immediately. So that's the first thing I did today. I woke up. I didn't even check my phone. I haven't even like gone online, honestly, like since this is the first thing I'm actually doing online right today. So I woke up. I didn't want to like look at my phone and look at Twitter and be like, this is the reaction to the live. I don't know. So I made myself a bowl of cereal. It was like Honey Grams kind of thing, or maybe the off-brand. I don't know. Made myself some Honey Grams, and I'm just sitting in my living room, and I take out my laptop and I start making notes. And we have notes, and then I'm just watching the show. And even while I'm pausing throughout like the episode to like take notes and like keep track and go back and just like, oh, what was that? I noticed a little Easter egg. What was that there? I'm going back and forth. Even with that, not watching it continuously all the way through, this was a blast. I thought it was great. I thought the music was on point. I thought the acting was on point. Yes, they changed things, but things that they changed in a lot of respects, I think worked really, really well, okay? So, first episode right now, I would say don't talk about spoilers down below in the comments for those of you that have seen all the future episodes. I mean, like, I can't really stop you if you want to be like, oh, hey, Tekking, wait till you get to episode 4 or whatever. Okay, I understand that, but, just, be aware if you're watching this and you've only seen episode 1 like me, be cautious when going into the comments or whatever, right? Okay, so, yeah, for the rest of these, I'm probably, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna just, like, after this video's up, just gonna go watch the remainder of the season, and then go through every episode. I don't know when I'll get, like, a set schedule, like, when I'll talk about each one, but I will talk about each episode in turn. Don't worry about that, but I had to get this one out first, and I think in the thumbnail I'm just going to be like, it's good! Exclamation point. Don't know if I'm going to include the exclamation point in the thumbnail. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but like, it's good! Exclamation point, because that's what a lot of people were like, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? To settle your concerns and anxieties from my perspective, watching it from my end of things, this was really solid, okay? So let's dive into it. It starts off in the best possible way, ladies and gentlemen. The very first thing that you see when you turn on Netflix and you click on One Piece, what do you get? You get geography. And by the way, I'm not going to show like scenes from the episode itself or stills because, well, for one thing, I want to get this video out pretty quick as an immediate reaction, and also just, I don't know if Netflix would be okay with that, so I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to bother with that. But we open the episode with geography. We have the narrator coming on. We see a map of one half of the world. We see South Blue, and then the Grand Line. We see the Calm Belts, and we see the East Blue. And, the narrator comes on like, this is a tale in a world unlike any other, and it like zooms into the Pole Star Islands. It zooms into Logtown, and that's the shot with Roger's execution, okay? So, of course, the second that you see geography, you've kind of won me over, all right? So episode starts, you see geography, and I'm like, all right, gotta pause already, gotta keep track. Where's all the islands? We see the Grand Line. You see the islands in the Grand Line, but they're not labeled yet, and that's good because you want to keep it a little bit of a mystery for people watching. So you do see Alabasta, though. You do see Jaya. You do see Skypiea. You see the islands kind of in their shapes, because I know what Alabasta is shaped like. Like, every One Piece fan knows what Alabasta is shaped like. So you see those islands in the Grand Line. And then you look in the East Blue, you see Sixus, which was the island that was heavily focused on in Ace's light novel series, and is also actually shown in the episode. They included Sixus Island. It was just like, you know what? Okay, it's geography. I'm all right with that. First version of Sixus is not in the anime. It's in the live action series. I'll roll with it. And you know what? They got the geography of Sixus right. Based off of what Boichi drew it as in his manga, you see it, and the establishing shot of Sixus is like the giant mountains and shit. You see it. It's like, wow. Many of you are probably sitting here like, what is even Sixus? I don't even, well, we'll get to that scene. It's a Zoro scene, actually. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But opening up with geography, fantastic, okay? So we get a shot of Roger's execution now, okay? We have the narrator, and we have Garp coming on, and Garp has a Scottish accent, by the way. And the thing is, like, a lot of people were kind of like, I don't know how I feel about Inyaki's accent, how all the characters have accents. In the One Piece world, if there's any work of fiction, if there's any fictional world where a bunch of characters all having different accents, you know, is going to work, is going to make sense, it's the One Piece world, okay? So yeah, there's a bunch of different accents through the whole thing, but I did not find it distracting. I don't know if you found it distracting. I found it fine because, like, yeah, there's not going to be a uniform kind of accent when most of the world is scattered in a series of islands. There's really not, like, a lot of major, like big continents for people to live on. It's just, like, everybody has their different islands. Everybody has different accents and the way they grew up in their regions and stuff like that. I think that works really well. If there's any world that, like, everybody has a different accent, this works, okay? So you have you have Roger arriving, and they do a thing in this series. Some of you might find it cheesy. I actually really like it. Whenever a major pirate steps on screen, their bounty poster just flaps in front of them, okay? And that works for a number of reasons, because in the story, wanted posters, bounty posters, like way over here, right? So that's like a big part of One Piece, you know, whenever we see a pirate's wanted poster, right? Well, in the live action, like, are we gonna do a thing where, like, you know, every time we see a pirate, you know, somebody has to pull up their wanted poster? I think it's easier just to have it flash on screen like it's not really there. But sometimes the characters will interact with it, like Alvida and Buggy. Like when Buggy is first introduced at the end of this episode, his wanted poster flashes on and he, like, whoosh, you know, moves it away like that. You know, I like that. It's a flourish. It's a little cheesy, but I love it. That was actually really cool. So you see Roger's wanted poster flash on screen. And this is insane because this is something that you don't see the number. You don't see the number. You don't see all of the number. You see part of the number. You could tell it's a really big-ass number, okay? But you don't see the full number. You just see Goldie Roger's wanted poster, and then it flaps off screen, and then you see Roger in live action, okay, with the mustache and everything, walking to the execution platform, all right? So they're going to do that throughout the whole episode. With Alvida's, we see the number, like the numbers will blaze on screen really big and like fire, and then they'll get wiped away. It's all together a very brief scene with the wanted posters, but I loved it for, like, just like, hey, this is the pirate, this is their number. Just to give you a quick metric, because we see Alvida early in the episode with 5 million, and then at the end of the episode, we get introduced to Buggy, who's a bounty of 15 million. So even somebody that's never watched One Piece before will know, oh, his bounty is 3 times the amount of Alvida's. Okay, he's more dangerous. All right, he's a crazy freaking clown pirate, all right? Buggy's introduction scene was so good. The music in the background was like this demented circus. We'll get to it. That's the very end of the episode, all right? So we have a shot of the crowd. This is actually something we saw in the trailer, but I forgot to bring up. You see Dragon. At least you see someone dressed in a large green cloak in the crowd at Logtown at the execution. So that's most likely Dragon. We don't see his face, but he is there. Let's see. On the execution platform, Roger and Garp are up there. That's something that they changed. Garp was originally not at Roger's execution. He was at Marineford dealing with Shiki, but this makes a lot of sense considering Garp and Roger do have a history together. They're kind of friends and rivals, and also Garp was the one that, like, captured Roger. There's even a nod to that where, you know, Garp has this long, you know, it's like, oh, this is the king of the pirates. He will be executed here for the stance of peace that no one will ever become a pirate again. This is the king of the pirates. We're putting to death right here and now. And Garp kind of turns to Roger and is like, do you have any last words, Roger? And Roger has his little sarcasm. He's just like, yeah, could you take these shackles off? They're starting to itch a little bit. And the whole crowd is like, ah, ha, ha. Okay. And Garp turns and looks at Roger deadpan, and he's like, you brought this on yourself, you know. And it's like, okay, all right, I like that, because, oh, by the way, I guess I should mention at this point, in case you're watching this as a brand new One Piece fan and you've never read the manga or the anime, I'm gonna spoil the manga and the anime for you, I guess. Okay. So, Roger turned himself into the Marines. Of course, Garp is presenting it like the Marines captured him, but Garp turned himself in. So it's like, you brought this upon yourself. It's kind of, you see where that goes? I was like, I got it. Okay. We see Mihawk. We see young Mihawk in the crowd, and his outfit is just like when you see him in the backstory. Like, we did, the backstory. I mean, we've seen Roger's execution so many times in various forms in the anime, but one of the more recent ones where we actually get to see Mihawk's like outfit with like the roses and stuff. He's like Mihawk's like 19 years old at this point. We see him in the crowd. Now, you don't see everybody. You don't see Crocodile. You don't see Doflamingo. We definitely see Mihawk and Shanks. There's a person with blue hair in the background. The camera doesn't really focus on them. I had to rewind and stop it a couple times. But that might be Buggy, because, Buggy has blue hair. So, if you actually stop and go like scene by scene by scene, frame by frame in the crowd, I'm sure you'll probably point out maybe Doflamingo, maybe Crocodile were there, and Moria as well. Maybe they are there at some point. You just have to focus on them really tightly. I'm not really sure on that one, though. I love this interpretation of Roger's execution, though. I do, because first of all, it actually shows Roger being executed. Like, most of the times we see it, it's always like, Roger's up there and there's somebody in the crowd and he's just like, Pirate King, where'd you put your treasure? And he's like, you want my treasure, mateys? You can have it. I left everything I own in that one place. And then it usually just cuts right there. No, you actually see the execution in the show. You actually see those two guys taking those like polearm weapons and just driving them directly into Roger's back, like through his heart. And then he's just there like, So that was actually kind of cool to see the actual execution and death of Roger. And even after he's got like his insides ruptured in his lungs and he's bleeding out, he's just like, choke on it. Okay. He doesn't actually say that, but that's like the expression on his face. I love that. And it shows the mass panic of the crowd, where this huge crowd is gathered for the execution of the King of the Pirates. And his last words are, go out, seek freedom, and find my treasure. It's out there in the Grand Line. And everybody's like, after he gets executed, everyone's like, let's go find the treasure! And then just start rushing. And the whole crowd is panicking. The Marines are trying to hold everybody. It's like, get back! And Roger's like, Garp is up on the scaffolding staring out amongst the whole crowd. And he's having like an anxiety attack moment or something where he's like, oh no, what just happened? What the hell just happened? All right. So, that's the execution scene, and it's phenomenal. All right. Great way. They started it off with geography and Roger's execution. You pretty much had me sold there, and we're not even barely like 5 minutes into the show yet. Okay. So, we now just immediately cut after this big epic moment where we see the King of the Pirates. We cut to the present day in the East Blue, and we see Luffy, played by Iñaki Godoy, in his little dinghy. In the little dinghy that he sets sail from Fuchsia Village. We don't see Fuchsia yet. We don't get the flashback yet. That's kind of scattered. We don't even get the full Shanks flashback in this episode. We have 2 Luffy flashbacks, and they're kind of just like sprinkling them through. I think that's the smartest way to do it, instead of focusing, like, if you were going to include the entire flashback with Luffy and Shanks, that would take up a good chunk of the episode. I think and that would kind of cut away from other stuff. I think the smart thing to do is like, okay, here's one piece of his flashback, come back to the present. Here's another piece of his flashback, and we don't even get to the whole thing with Lord of the Coast or anything yet. That hasn't happened yet, okay? The last scene we get with Luffy in the flashback in this episode is him actually eating the fruit, Higuma showing up at the bar, causing a ruckus, and then Shanks finding out Luffy ate the fruit, okay? But we see, Luffy with the scar stabbing himself in the face. We see that scene, okay? So Luffy is 17 at this point. He's in the ship. He's sailing. He's kind of like bailing out some water because he's like, I can't swim. And he's going on and on talking about how he's going to be king of the pirates. He's going to find a crew. He says, 10 men should about do it. That's something else that Luffy says. I think that's actually, I don't think that was in the original chapter 1, I think. I think that was something later in post-war, like post-Marineford. He actually says that when we get that flashback, like about 10 should do it. But then he immediately turns and is like, 10 men and 1 bird, because he's not talking to himself. He's talking to a news coup. Like, the news coup landed on his little dinghy. He's like, hey, you want a newspaper? And Luffy just starts telling him his life story. And I love how the news coup is looking at Luffy just like, dude, are you going to buy a newspaper or what? Do you not have any money? Because if not, I'm out of here, right? And I love that line, though. It's like this really serious, like, oh, yeah, 10 men on my crew should about do it. Actually, 10 men and 1 bird. So does that confirm that Pell is going to be a member of the Straw Hats now? Yeah, I honestly never took the 10 seriously. I never was just like, oh, is that actually just like a hard limit for 10 or other people going to join? I never took it super seriously. And I like how the show adds like, oh, 10 men and 1 bird. And so it cuts to the news coup. News coup's like, all right, you're not buying a newspaper. I'm out of here. And just flies away. And we saw that scene in the trailer, but that was really funny. So Luffy's like, mutiny, whatever. But then he notices that, like, the leak in his dinghy is a little bit more severe than just initially assumed. Like, he can't just bail out the water. Like, there's a lot of water beginning to gather. Like, the ship is now sinking. And so Luffy's like, oh, crap, that's not good. So he just kicks over a fish barrel and he crawls into it. And then he just like, okay, this is my first day as a pirate, man. And he can't swim. So he gets in the barrel, falls out, and he begins to bob. Also, I love the idea. They didn't actually explain the negative effects of devil fruits. I like it when a show, especially a show that's adapting so much lore like One Piece, I was worried with this, like they were going to have to stop and explain everything. Like they were going to have to stop and explain why Luffy doesn't know how to swim or why can't he physically swim. It's a byproduct of the devil fruit. I love how they don't shove a bunch of information in your face right away with that. It's like, you know, honestly, if you're just watching this and you've never seen One Piece, you might just think Luffy can't swim and just like, oh, wow, that's weird. He wants to be a pirate, but he can't swim. That doesn't make any sense. Well, that'll be explained later. So I like that. So he gets in the barrel. By the way, the barrel, did you notice the barrel? So the barrel is actually labeled Gyoru's like fish tackle or something. Like you see a label on it. Gyoru is a fisherman that lives at Fuchsia Village. You can go on the wiki, it's like he's actually named. So they wanted to make Luffy's barrel like distinctive, so when it's picked up by Alvida's crew, it's like, oh, that's the barrel Luffy's in, okay? So they mark it like specifically so you know which one it is, but they mark it with like Yoru, who is like an actual character at Fuchsia Village that Luffy, you know, would have known. And it's like, here, Luffy, have some fish for your journey. Ah, thanks, old man Gyoru. You know, it's like, I like that. I like that little note there. Okay. There's one other scene where Luffy's getting into the barrel and his straw hat is about to like fly off from the wind, and he just very subtly, very easily just like, oh, whoa, you know, where he's just like, oh no, can't lose the hat, can't lose the hat. You know, it's nuts. In the original manga in the anime, Luffy didn't even have like the strand on his hat yet. Like literally it was just the hat early on, and I think Nami added on the cord later because like Luffy, like somebody literally had to hold Luffy's hat like in the initial start of One Piece, because if not, it was just gonna fly off in every single fight. So I think initially like Nami would usually hang on to it for a while, but then eventually they're like just gonna sew on a strand so it could just hang on Luffy's back. So it's there at the beginning here, which it makes a lot more sense. So that was cool. All right, so there's music transitions here. I really like the way this works, where Luffy gets in the barrel and there's like a theme in the background, and it starts out kind of like kooky and silly, like, oh no, Luffy's getting into a barrel, this is kind of wacky, but then it slowly builds to be more intense as we see the barrel drift to Alvida's pirate ship, the Miss Love Duck. So we cut in time a little bit. Luffy's asleep in the barrel, and we hear him snoring. We see the Miss Love Duck, which looks great, attacking a merchant vessel, and we see Alvida, played by Ilia Paulino. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing anybody's names here. So Alvida's character, she plays this very impeccably well. And there's a scene I missed the first time. When you see Alvida, you see the back of her. It really plays with introducing the pirates in very dramatic ways. So, like, with Alvida, you don't just see her face. You see, like, her fingers, her fingernails, like, you know, sharpened to a point, grabbing on to her mace, and then you see a shot of the mace, and there's actually 3 of the maces. You see, like, an actual, like, Morning Star kind of thing, like, you see with, like, the sphere and, like, the spikes. Later on, she has another one that's shaped like a unicorn or like a horse, and then at the end, when she finally fights Luffy on the deck of the ship, she uses her proper iron like kanabo. So she actually uses like 3 different kinds of like iron clubs, iron maces. That was a cool addition. But you see her like grab the mace, and then you see the mace, and then you see the back of her head, and then she turns around, and then you get the wanted poster, Alvida, 5 million, and then she tosses it away and just like, take everything on the ship, but leave the crew to me. You know, I'll show them what it's like to be a pirate, right? There's a shot that I missed when you see Alvida Alvida, as her face is turned away from the camera, she's not turning away from the camera for no reason, like just for the sake of the wanted poster, like dramatic effect. She's looking into a mirror. One of the crewmates picks up a giant mirror, holds it in front of her, and she's like checking herself out in the mirror, like, damn, I look awesome. And then she turns around, and then you get the dramatic reveal, and the guy with the mirror just like moves off stage. You know, I like that because Alvida is very vain. And the actress portrays that very well. You know, just like she has a very high ego and just believes that, like, oh, everybody's like, I'm the greatest pirate ever. Everybody's, of course, out to obtain the head of the beautiful Captain Alvida, right? So she's like that. And it was always mentioned that, well, actually, in the original SBS, it was mentioned, I think, the only thing that she does not have on her ship is a mirror. But they do have mirrors on her ship here, which actually does make sense because Alvida always viewed herself to be beautiful, all right? Even after she consumed the devil fruit, and I don't know if they're going to go down that direction with it when we get to Logtown, but even after she consumed the devil fruit, I think, like, it changes depending on the version. There's one version that's like, I think this is between 4 kids in the original, but there's one that's like, eating the fruit she admits made her beautiful. And then I think in the actual manga, all she says was, oh, it got rid of my freckles. Like, so she's always viewed herself as being the most, like, beautiful woman in the entire world. So it would make sense why she would have mirrors and why she would like check herself out in the mirror before a battle. Like, that's her pre-battle ritual, is looking at a mirror. So that's a change, but I like it. I think it works with Alvida's character, her level of, like, narcissism that she has, okay? So let's see. The costumes are on point. They took a lot of the references straight from the anime. Remember that one dude? There were 2 people on Alvida's crew I remember. There's the dude with the striped shirt and the striped hat. He actually is one of the guys that opens up Luffy's barrel. There's that dude. And then there's the guy that has the stereotypical, like, horned Viking helmet. He's dressed in green. He's got the Viking helmet with the horns that Vikings never actually wore, but it looks cool for aesthetic. They have those characters here. They're there in the background. The dude with the striped shirt, the guy with the horned helmet, you see him there. You see Alvida participate in this raid on this merchant vessel, and it's brutal. She picks this Morning Star up, and she just, like, swings over, like, and you know, it's cool, quick cutting, and it's just like, fire! You know, and they're loading the cannons. We see this cool scene, this naval combat moment where cannonballs are slamming and knocking people over, and just, like shit's exploding on the deck, and then Alvida arrives, and she takes out this Morning Star, and she just clocks somebody in the face, somebody else in the face, somebody else in the face, just brutally murdering the crap out of this crew. And yeah, it's a lot more visceral and seinen-like than in the manga, but hey, it works. This is rated TV-14. So I click it on, it says TV-14, and it says, okay, there's smoking, violence, nudity. And I'm like, which character? Which character is gonna have the nudity? I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's Helmeppo. Helmeppo has a nude scene in this. So if you've ever wanted to see Helmeppo's pasty white ass, the One Piece live action delivers. It's actually a really funny scene. It's really funny. I can't wait to talk about Helmeppo's pasty white ass. All right, so anyway, that's something, you know what? I've been talking about One Piece a long time on this channel. That was something I never thought I would say, but here we are. All right, so, okay. Alvida's interrogating part of the crew that's not brutally murdered, that she didn't cave their skulls in, right? So she's got, like, another mace now, and it's, like, shaped like, it's like a horse head or, like, a unicorn. It's got, like, gems inlaid in it, and it's got, like, spikes sticking out, so it'll still kill the crap out of you. So she has multiple maces, you know, so it makes sense for her, right? So she's walking through, and Luffy's barrel's also hoisted up at this point, but it's not opened yet. So she's looking for Zoro, Alvida. She's like, okay, pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro. I knew he was on your ship. I know he was a passenger on your ship. Where is he? I know he's after me. I'm Alvida, the greatest pirate ever. Of course he's after my head, right? And so the captain of the ship, I guess, he's like, Zoro, he booked passage to Sixus Island. And then Alvida's just like, liar! I'll figure out, like, where he is no matter what, and let me know, like, he was after my head, right? And the captain's like, oh yeah, he had a bunch of wanted posters of a bunch of pirates, and I bet mine was at the top, right? And then the captain's like, I don't think you were actually included at all. You know, I've never really saw a man sign his own damn death warrant before, but you know what? At least he's, like, honest. He's just like, oh no, actually, you weren't included at all. She just picks up the horse mace and just BAM! Just bashes his skull and it just kills the poor dude. So, Sixus Island. We'll get back to it because we actually see it in the episode. That's like actually a scene coming up, so we'll get to it. But Zoro booked passage to Sixus Island, which in the light novels is like a deserted island. So I was like, honestly, like, oh, okay, if they're going to do something out with it, like, it's a deserted island in the light novels. It doesn't have to be a deserted island in this. They can change it if they want to. It's fine. That was the island where Ace and Mastus washed up, and Ace found the Marimarinomi and ate it. It's in the light novel. So yeah, there's that. So we'll get back to Sixus Island in a second here, okay? So, Alvida kills that poor son of a bitch. We also see Kobe in the background just kind of chilling amongst the crew. He's just like, hi everybody, I'm Kobe. And then we cut to Kobe and he's cleaning the mace. So like Kobe's job, he's like the cabin boy, and he's there with like a toothbrush, like cleaning the blood and brain and skull bits off of the mace that Alvida killed. So that's Kobe's job. Kobe's the one that has to go down there in the freaking the under part of the ship in the middle of the night and like scrub all the freaking grime off of the mace. That would suck. I can understand why Kobe wants to get the hell out of there. So Kobe is the one that like opens the barrel. Like Luffy gets out of the barrel, and then like Kobe's the only one there, and so Luffy's like, "Oh, that was a good nap," and Kobe's like, "Ah!" And then Luffy's like, "Hey, stop that!" And Kobe's like, "Oh, please don't kill me!" And then Luffy just like slaps him in the face, which you might think that actually happens in the manga. Luffy actually, there's a scene later in the manga where Luffy straight up just like, actually I think he just like punches Kobe straight in the face. So yeah, that's canon. That happens. But I love that Luffy's just, like, Kobe's screaming and Luffy's like, boom, knock it off. Shh. Okay, where's the food? All right, I am starving right now. So the way Iñaki portrays Luffy, I love it. I think, and I saw a lot of interviews with him this past week. He did an interview, I think, for Teen Vogue, and he also did the one interview where we actually see, well, not really an interview, but we see him meeting Oda, and so those scenes are very, very wholesome to me, and I think Iñaki's got Luffy's character down. One thing he mentions in one of those interviews, Inaki says that Luffy doesn't talk that much, rather he listens. He listens to what people are saying, okay? And then when he does talk, it's usually like, it is like, oh, okay, well, why don't you just go follow your dreams, or I'll help you follow your dreams, because that's what you help me, I'll help you, that kind of stuff, okay? He's a very genuine, wholesome kind of person, not above punching the crap out of people, obviously, he has his dreams and his goals and his motivations, but he does listen to people for their motivation and stuff, and we're going to get that later with Zoro, when Luffy actually meets Zoro, which is a different scene, similar, but the way the setup to how Luffy meets Zoro is different with this, okay? We begin a flashback here with Kobe, because Kobe's talking about, like, because Luffy, of course, announces himself as a pirate, and Kobe's like, all pirates are scum, they're horrible, and then Luffy's just like, oh, not the ones I've met, and then that leads into the beginning of Luffy's flashback. So we have young Luffy, played by Colton Osorio, yes, and good child actor, he does a great job here. We see Shanks' crew, we see Yasop, we see Lucky Roo, we see Ben Beckman, we see Shanks there, and they're arriving at Fuchsia. Luffy looks at like a little calendar to like, oh, look, Shanks is back today. So he gets up to go see Shanks. We see their whole crew unloading everything. We see the box with the marine sigil on it that has the Gamu Gamu no Mi in it. He's just like, careful, Roo. We don't want to lose this one right here. This is the most valuable thing we got from that ship, okay? So they don't go overly into detail of like the ship that they attacked or anything like that. It's explained later, actually, just recently in the manga. Within the last couple of years we got that information, right? So Lucky Roo, Yasop, actually Yasop in the credits is credited as not just Yasop but as the Great Yasop. I love that. So we got that scene. We have the knife scene where Luffy's there, and I think the way that like the crew is like, Luffy's like, hey, I want to be a pirate, and everyone's just like, ha ha ha, oh Luffy, come back when you got some scars on your face just like mine and everything like that. And, saying Shanks has his scars, and Luffy's like, okay, so he goes away, he takes the knife, he stabs himself in the face. It says later, I was trying to stab myself in the eye, but I missed, and I hit, just under the eye. So that's really the only scene that we get there. quick introduction of Shanks and his crew and how they kind of operate together. They're kind of like, talking with one another, kind of joking around. We see Luffy, see their relationship with Luffy. He's this kid from the village that's always bugging them to join the crew. And then Shanks is like, hey, you're not ready to be a pirate. It's not a kid's game. It's like serious stuff. Look at the scars on my face. This is actual real stuff here. And then you have the scene with Luffy proving that he's, he's like, I can be a brave warrior of the sea. I could be a pirate. And he stabs himself. And then we cut back to Kobe and Luffy like in the bows of Alvida's ship. Okay, so good way to like first establish Shanks in these small little like vignettes, I guess, as we move forward. Okay. And so Kobe is like, okay, well, Alvida's upstairs. She's snoring and everything. You can't cross Alvida. She'll beat the crap out of you. And Luffy basically says to him, he's just like, hey, listen, never let others tell you what you can't do. Like life's not worth living otherwise. I never would have left the village. Like you gotta go and live the way that you want to live. Like freedom is paramount. So once again, we don't know anything about the will of D yet. I mean, Luffy announces himself as I'm Monkey D. Luffy, but the D is never like questions or referenced or anything like that. But that's Luffy's personality. It always goes back to personal freedom, being the person you want to be and following your own path. Okay. So great scene coming up next when they sneak up on the deck. So they creep up and Luffy's trying to get out of there and Kobe's like, okay, well, you could take one of the lifeboats and, get out of here and, sail due north and you could find an island. And Luffy's like, okay, where's north? And so he picks up an oar and he's like, I'm going to need this for rowing, And so he's like, where's north? And he like turns to look. And of course he turns with the oar and it smacks into like the bell on the deck of the ship, and Alvida was sleeping. All the people, all the crew are like sleeping on the deck of the ship, so they all wake up immediately like, what's going on here? And Luffy's like, oh, okay, so we're doing this now. It's just like, it's great. I love how Alvida wakes up and she's like immediately with the narcissism. She's just like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Oh, you must be a bounty hunter coming for my head. Of course, I understand. I am awesome in so many different ways. Kobe, what are you doing? And there's the interaction with Kobe there where Kobe's like, oh, hi, Miss Invita. I didn't know. And then Luffy's like, oh, no, I was talking to Kobe, and he says that you suck and you're mean and everything. And Alvida's like, So she gets her captain coat on. She picks up now she's up to her actual iron like Kanabo, the thing that she uses in the Iron Mace, Iron Club Alvida, and she uses in the anime. So the way that they use the superhuman strength in this show, it's not on the exaggerated level with the anime, I think, but it is shown that these characters are capable of lifting things several times their own weight, several heavy things. So she picks up this Kanabo and begins to swing it around. And she gets like a good 6, 7, 8 swings in before Alvida becomes like kind of noticeably winded, which you would imagine like, okay, a normal person like swinging that giant Kanabo around, you maybe get 1 or 2 and you're like, all right, no way. So it's boosted a bit, but not to like some exaggerated, like Alvida's not like jumping up in the air and like spinning around to do anything like that, right? So it's just like she's swinging this iron club around. Luffy's like somersaulting and like using the oar to like keep Kobe down. He's like jumping all over the place. And one of the crew, just the random, because Alvida's like hitting her own men as she's doing this. She's like smacking her own men into the freaking deck of the ship. One of the pirates just is like, screw this kid. He just pulls out a freaking pistol and just shoots Luffy right in the chest. Now, obviously it doesn't work. It just bounces right back and hits the dude in the hand. He's like, ah, what the hell are you? And Alvida's like, what monster are you? And just like the stretchy kind, okay? Now, I love that because it's like, you're seeing Alvida, your captain, fighting this kid with a straw hat out of random, and just like you're swinging and he just keeps dodging everything, moving around. There's one pirate that's just like, we have guns. Bam! Just gonna shoot the kid, but it doesn't work. I love that. And so now Luffy's now using his Gamu Gamu no Mi powers. Alvida's swinging. Luffy's like dodging away, like out of the way with his stretching powers. And it's just like, okay, yeah, you can't hurt me, essentially, right? And so the fight choreography here is very well done. Alvida continues to swing her mace, and she gets more and more winded as she does so. At one point, she swings it. It hits a lantern, like a fire lantern, over the wheel. It lands on the wheel. The whole thing the ship begins to burn, and Alvida's like just looking at him, just kind of winded at this point, and she brings down like one last, like she sees Kobe, and she's like, Kobe, this is all your fault, and she goes to bring it down on him. Luffy jumps in front of Kobe, mace hits him right in the straw hat, bounces back, knocks Alvida off her feet a little bit, and then she's just there kind of like, And then Luffy, pulls back and uses the Gumu Gumu no pistol that we saw in the trailer. And then, BAM! Just punches Alvida square in the face, knocks her overboard. I can't really describe it other than just being the perfect combination of a serious moment and the goofiness of One Piece. There's a magic, like, golden zone in that, like, between super serious and super goofy. There's a zone in the middle there where that works. They both work together. I don't know where that zone is. Maybe, for everybody it's different. But for me, it hit it perfectly. The cues from the music as Luffy, is like, gum, gum, pistol, goes to do it. And Alvida's just there like, what the fuck? What is this kid? Bam! And then she just gets whipped and then knocked over the side of the ship. And that's it. That's the fight. Oh my god, it's great. Okay, then there's a scene where Luffy, he walks over, because the rest of Alvida's crew is there. They didn't really get involved in the fight all that much, and they're below, they're kind of like, Luffy's kind of like up on the area where the helm is, and then there's like stairs that go down, and the rest of the crew is like looking at Luffy, and Luffy's looking at them, and he's just like, anybody else got a problem with my friend Kobe? And they're just like, nope, sir, no problems here, no problems here, man, no, we're good, we're not fucking with you. I love that. Luffy didn't even need a fight. It's just like, no, but seriously, this kid shows up out of nowhere in the middle of the night. Your captain fights him. He's immune to bullets, apparently. He's immune to getting hit with giant freaking iron clubs. And then just stretches his arm the length of the ship and then punches your captain in the face into the water. Like, how do you respond to that? Like, let's get him, man! Just like, no. It's like, I'm done. We're done. We're done with this bullshit. We're not doing it. We're fine with Kobe. Kobe's a cool dude. I always liked Kobe. Kobe was fine. So, this leads now, as we transition out of this moment, we are now cutting over to Six's Island. So Six's Island is the scene where we see Zoro. We are first introduced to Zoro here as a bounty hunter, and we are also introduced to Baroque Works in the form of Mr. Seven. This was in the trailer, but I missed the scene in the trailer. I didn't miss it. I thought it was Kabaji, but it was actually Mr. Seven. Okay, so this is a scene we did not see in the manga, and we did not see in the anime. I don't think this is the first time I think this scene has ever actually been, like, shown in any capacity, okay? So it was confirmed in an SBS that Zoro had killed Mr. Seven in the East Blue at some point. They arrived and we were going to give him, like, hey, we want to invite you to be part of Baroque Works. And Zoro's response to it was like, I want to be the boss. And he's like, well, you can't be the boss. And so Zoro just kills Mr. Seven, okay? So we see that elaborated upon here. So we see Six's Island. So the light novel had a manga adaptation drawn by Boichi, who is the mangaka, who is the artist of of Dr. Stone with Inagaki. So that was a phenomenal chapter, and you see these large, like, mountainous pillars and stuff kind of coming off the island. That's in the show. They have an establishing shot where you see them in the distance, and then there's, like, a jungle area. And the island, I'm thinking, okay, what are they going to do with Six's Island? Why would Zoro go to Six's Island? So he's there, and you see a little shrine, and he's, like, lighting all these candles on the island. It's kind of implied, I guess, Zoro's the one that lit all these candles himself. And then Mr. Seven shows up, and he's just like, oh, you're at a shrine, usually you light candles for people you've lost. And Zoro's like, yeah, this is for a friend a long time ago, right? And he's like, oh, what about the others? And then, Zoro just kind of turns and looks at the dude, and he's just like, you've been following me for like 3 days now. So I'm getting the impression what Zoro was doing is like, okay, there's this dude, this annoying, like, guy in this red outfit and this mohawk that's, like, been following me for, like, days. You know what? I'm going to lead him out in the middle of nowhere to find out what he wants, and I'm just going to kill him where no one can bother me, right? So, Six's Island might be kind of an uninhabited, populated jungle kind of like island, and he's just like, okay, Sixus is close to here, all right, I'm gonna book passage to that island. He's gonna follow me there out in the middle of nowhere. I'll see what he wants, and then I'll just kill him. All right. There he goes. He's a bounty hunter. That's what Zoro does. He straight up kills people, right? So we get introduced to Baroque Works early. Mr. Seven has a card. He's just like, oh, it has the Baroque Works sigil on it, and he presents it to him. And I love Makenyu here as Zoro. He's just like, oh, if he could have just said, oh, make me the boss and I'll join. And he's like, no. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to kill you. No, he has this really sarcastic line that I love where he's just like, I work alone. I kind of do my own thing. Also, the only number I really care about is number 1. And he just holds up his middle finger too. He's not even looking at Mr. Seven. He's just like, I just care about number one. And he just holds up his finger and it's just like, yeah, screw off. I'm not joining your stupid boy band or whatever, you know? And he says, it's like, also, by the way, I'm kind of insulted that they want me to join, but they sent a dude with a giant 7 painted across his face, you know. And by the way, in the SBS, in the little drawing that Oda did, he did actually draw Mr. 7 with a 7 tattoo on his cheek, and we see that in the show. And so, yeah, Zoro was kind of insulted by this. He's like, you want me to join your top secret assassin club, but you send Mr. 7 at me? Oh, screw you. You know, I'm not even good enough to warrant Mr. 2 or Mr. 1. Zoro has no idea who these characters are, but he's just like, you know, now this is an insult to me, you know. And so they have a fight scene we see in the trailer. He stops, you know, Mr. 7's swords. They fight. He only uses 2 swords in this fight, Nitoryu. And so he has one scene that's really cool where all these candles are going on as like he's lit this shrine. There's a scene where Zoro like spins around and all the candles all go out at once. And Mr. 7 kind of has a moment where he's like, oh, crap, this guy's really good. He's going to probably kill me. And he does. Zoro literally just goes up and just slices Mr. 7 in half, like at the waist. And his body just, and just, that's it. Okay. So that was cool. That was cool. Oh, another addition. Little Easter egg. Zoro, as he's lighting the candles, has a matchbook, like a matchbox, okay? And he opens it up and he's lighting the matches on the candles. The box says Beast of Baltimore. Baltimore is Karakuri Island. Baltimore, Beast of Baltimore. You see a little image of like a tiger on it, and that's like a reference to something that happens much later in the manga, Frankie. I know some people probably would say at this point, like, you know, but Frankie becomes the Beast of Baltimore later. That can't happen now. It's like, it's an Easter egg, guys. I don't even know if we're ever going to get to that scene. Well, I guess they'll just change it around. Here's what they'll do. They'll change the legend so that there was a Beast of Baltimore in legend, and then when Frankie showed up and put on the pelt, it's like, oh my god, the Beast of Baltimore has returned! You know, that would actually add more impact to it. If there was already a legend of the Beast of Baltimore in antiquity, and then Frankie shows up, puts on the pelt, comes running out burning, and there's like, oh my god, the Beast has returned! You know, it's the second coming! That would actually work better, in my opinion. Okay. But it was honestly just a little Easter egg, so I'm not going to go way into it, all right? But I did find it neat, the little Easter egg there with the matches. Okay. So, let's see, what is next? We get flashback number 2 next, as Luffy is explaining, like, how exactly he ate the fruit, okay? So, Luffy and Kobe are kind of on a ship, on the little dinghy of the Miss Love Duck. It has little, you know, figurehead of the little duck there, and they're sailing away. And you see the burning Alvita ship in the background. The Miss Love Duck is just being, you know, burning in the background, and Luffy and Kobe are just sailing away, just like, whatever, we're good, we did that, okay. And they're talking about their dreams, and this was a scene that Iñaki brought up in the interview. And we see the second part of the flashback here in this episode, where we see Shanks patching up Luffy's face with the scar. They talk a little bit about how scars should be earned, and yours, you know, he's like, you did it yourself, you know, so it doesn't really count. It's not really the same exact thing as the scar that like Shanks has that he got from Blackbeard. He doesn't mention Blackbeard or anything or where he got it, but it's like, you know, the scar you have and the scar I have are like different stories here, right? So he's patching up Luffy's face, and Luffy's like, well, I proved myself, I want to go be a pirate now. And he's like, oh, the ship already has an anchor, kid, sorry. And he points to young Luffy's wearing the anchor shirt, just like, you know, in the manga. And Bink Sake's playing in the background. You hear, like, I don't think it's actually being played, like the crew's actually playing it, like, on the piano or anything, but you hear it as a musical accompaniment as we lead back into the flashback. You hear Bink Sake, do-do-do-do-do-do, you know, it's like, it's just a little bit, it's in the background, you can hear it, though. I love that. Let's see, we see the scene where Luffy, so, I actually kind of like this change. The Gumu Gumu no Mi is not just hanging out on an open treasure chest on the bar where Luffy can just sit down and like, you know? So Luffy is kind of upset, of course, that Shanks, even after he stabbed himself, he's still not letting him on the crew, not letting him be a pirate. Luffy's a little kid at this point. He's like 7. And so he wanders into the room where they were carrying all the treasure into. Like, so all the boxes of treasure. And you see the box with the Gumu Gumu no Mi in there. And Luffy walks in there and he's just like, stupid Shanks, you know, stupid pirates. I just want to join the stupid treasure. And he sees the box and he picks it up, and it's a unique looking box. It's like a different box than the rest of the random crates that they have. And you see the marine sigil on it, and Luffy opens it up really fancy, and he sees the Gumu Gumu no Mi. And he picks it up and he's looking at it. It's a little bit smaller than this. The actual prop is like an actual like fruit size, like, I don't know, pear sized, mango sized. I don't know. He takes it and he starts eating the fruit. And he's eating the fruit, and he just, like, you get the impression it doesn't taste great, but he's still eating it, right? And in the original, like, okay, this is one of the things that doesn't translate too well from anime to live action. I think in the live action, Luffy just, I mean, in the show, I think Luffy just kind of eats it in like 1 or 2 bites, and this, that's not how you eat a fruit. You have to like eat it, all around. So you see the inside of a devil fruit, it's like bright lime green. It looks radioactive. It looks like something you really should not be eating. But Luffy's like a little kid, so it's like, I buy this. He's just like, oh, I ate that fruit. Kind of tasted like crap though, but whatever, I ate it. It's okay. So then we have Higuma arriving. So we see Party's bar. We see Makino. She's there. She looks like Makino. We have Shanks at the bar. And we have Higuma arriving as a mountain bandit. And he's showing up and he's like, hey, where's all the beer at? I want a pint. And so Makino is just like, yeah, we're out. Sorry. And she's just being just like, please leave. And Shanks is like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. We drank all the beer, all the booze. We've been having a little bit of a celebration. Tell you what, we have this bottle of rum. You can have that. And then Higuma is, of course, like, what could I do with this? And he shatters it on the ground, and Shanks is like, all right, Makino, you got a mop? We have a mess over here. Okay, I'm going to start cleaning up. And Higuma just, like, knocks everything else off the bar for Shanks to clean up. He's just like, you stupid janitor. If you want to clean up, you can clean up. Let's get out of here, boys. And so that was the scene with Higuma. It showcased Higuma being a piece of shit. That pretty much was the point of the scene. It established where we needed to be. The rest of the crew, like Shanks' crew, is like, they got you good, Captain. Oh, do you have a mop, sir? It's just like, yeah, how it goes, yeah. Luffy shows up and he's very upset. He's just like, that's not how pirates act. You just let them walk all over you. And Shanks looks at Luffy and he tells him, just like, Luffy, the fact that you think that proves that you are not ready to join my crew. It proves you are not ready to be a pirate yet because of that being your reaction to it. It's just some booze, Luffy. It's just some random thug causing trouble. Not everything has to be like a moment, Although Shanks' crew does have a moment where they like Yasop kind of pulls out his gun and kind of like gets ready to see where Shanks is going to go with this, depending on what Higuma does. Now it would have been a different story if Higuma walked up to the bar, pulled out his sword, and like held it like Makino at like, sword point. That'd be a different story altogether. It's like, okay, what's this dipshit gonna do? We don't know what he's gonna do. But all he did was break a bottle and throw some shit on the floor and then leave. It's just like, okay, whatever, who cares? We're not gonna get into a fight over that. You know what I mean? So Shanks only gets involved when it's necessary, okay? But then, of course, Luffy begins to run and walk away. Shanks grabs his arm. It stretches. By the way, the CG of the special effects for the stretching, I think it worked great. I don't really have any problems with that, honestly. A lot of times it's used, like, this is a scene where it's drawn out because, like, Luffy is walking away as his body stretches and he's like, wait, what, huh? What just happened to me? Right? So now, in this scene, it is drawn out, of course, because this is the scene where we find out that he's stretchy, and it's just like, whoa, what just happened there? I don't know. And Shanks is like, oh, Luffy, what did you do? That kind of stuff. But normally, like during the fight scenes and stuff like that, it moves really quick and it looks realistic to the point, and then boom. So the fight, it's like a lot of the fight scenes, they're high action. They're moving quickly, just like Luffy's just punching people, stretching, and it's just like it's incorporated into the fight very well, but it's not like it doesn't look bad, and it doesn't look to the point where it's like it's on screen for so long that it's distracting, if that makes sense. I'm going to go with that. Okay. So, we have that flashback, and rubber effects are pretty good. Kobe, and we cut back to the present where they're still in the rowboat sailing away from Alvida's ship, and this is where Kobe and Luffy are talking about their individual dreams. So Luffy talked about how he wanted to be king of the pirates, and Kobe mentions, I want to be a Marine. And I love this scene because Luffy just said he's a pirate, and he wants to be king of the pirates, in fact, and Kobe's maybe a little reserved, and he's just like, maybe I shouldn't tell him I should be a Marine because he's a pirate. I'm going to be a Marine. Is he going to push me overboard if he finds out I want to be a Marine? But Luffy's very warm and welcoming. He's like, hey, Kobe, we shared a meal together. I'm going to help you. You know what I mean? So I need a map to the Grand Line, and you want to be a Marine. So seems to me we're going to set a course for the nearest Marine base, get in there, find the map for me. You can join up. We're good to go. And Kobe's like, you can't just sail into a Marine base and demand a map of the Grand Line. That is like the most dangerous stretch of ocean on the planet. You can't just do that. And Luffy's like, I'm stealthy. We'll figure it out. He just goes to sleep on the ship as the Miss Love Duck is just burning and exploding. Like, okay, it hit the gunpowder. Boom! And just, okay, and Luffy's just like, yeah, whatever. Luffy's kind of insane, honestly, if you really stop and think about it. Like, in the show, but also in the anime in general. Luffy is kind of crazy. Like, it's just, that's why we love him, you know what I mean? That's just how he is. Okay. Oh, boy. So, now we get Nami's first scene. All right, so we're kind of going ahead with the anime logic of this, where Nami is introduced like in the first episode in the anime, where she was like robbing that cruise ship. So she's introduced here. Now we move all of this stuff around, where by the end of the Shell's Town arc, Luffy, Nami, and Zoro are all together sailing together, okay? I don't think that really changes much in terms of like storyline elements. They still have the moment where Nami is adrift in the little rowboat, and then Buggy's crew shows up, and then she pretends to be a castaway. She pretends to be like, I was attacked by pirates, please help me, I need water. And Buggy's crew are just like, oh, okay, we'll help you, young lady, all right. And they go to take her treasure. It's an empty chest, and then Nami's there, and she's already sneaked on board their ship and stolen it. So that scene still happens. That's a really fun scene. This is where the soundtrack really began to like speak to me a little bit here. So the soundtrack is, they use, as they said, there's being sake in the background as like an ambient kind of track, but they also use like very high energy, kind of like da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. It is very kind of Pirates of the Caribbean, a little bit esque. Not exactly the same as those movies, but you know, similar, like a pirate kind of shanty, kind of like energetic orchestral score in the background. And I think it does fit One Piece. If they're going to do a combination between the OSTs from the anime and then like some original soundtrack for the show, I would like that. I would like that, yeah. Take some of the greatest hits from the OST, but you can add your own stuff too. You know, it doesn't all have to be directly taken from the anime. This is its own property. Have fun with it. Have some new music that you think fits the scene. And so Nami robbing a bunch of pirates blind and then sailing off with their ship, it's just like, thank you, boys. It's like, that works. It kind of works. Nami takes out her little map book, her little journal. Oh, she's also, Emily Rudd, who plays Nami, is wearing the outfit, this outfit that was seen right here in one of the candid shots and like during the set. It's the concept art that Oda originally had for Nami way back in the day, back when Nami was like a cyborg with a giant axe. That's the scene. Okay, so she's wearing that outfit as like the first time we see her, which makes sense considering this was like one of the first concepts for Nami. So Nami takes out her map book and she flips a page, and we see the page like the East Blue that she's looking at, and she's like, okay, where's next? But when she takes out flips a page, you see the page under it. And I had to rewind this like 7 times until I finally got it exactly right on my TV, because I wanted to see what that page was. I knew that page was something. I'm looking at the page. It's Water 7. It's a drawing of one of the docks at Water 7. You see one of the big docks with the water coming out of it, like the side of the, it's not the whole island, it's just the side of the island. But I'm like, it's a drawing of Water 7. I like that. I like that Nami has this little book, and she's like, oh, there's an island in the Grand Line called Water 7. This is what it looks like. I'm going to sketch it. I'm like, okay, that works. I like it. Easter eggs. They're fun. Okay, so we have that scene. That's just Nami's introduction. Really well done there. We now immediately cut to Shell's Town. Okay, so this is one episode. It's an hour and 4 minutes long. It's a little bit over an hour. We got to get moving with the series. So, you know, it's just not, we're not going to have a lot of scenes like Luffy and Kobe, like, okay, which way's north? There's the stars, you know, just, we're cutting to Shell's Town. All right, so we cut to Shell's Town, the 153rd Marine Base, where the rest of this episode will play out. I love the set of the town, the Marine Base, the yard, the little bar area where Rika and everybody are at with the rice balls and all that stuff. All that looks incredible. It looks amazing, okay? And so I think the establishing shots for that island, by the way, for the Shell's Town itself, I think it's a town in Italy somebody told me about. Like, there was a town that they added the Marine Base in post, in special effects and things like that. But like, the actual establishing shot of the town itself is from like Italy, and then they built the set in South Africa. And so it's just the actual shots of the town itself look great. The head of cinematography, the lead cinematographer for the first 2 episodes of the One Piece live action, is Nicole Hirsch-Whitaker. I actually had the privilege of interviewing her yesterday. That video will be out either, I don't know if I'm going to put it out later tonight or tomorrow, but we did an interview and she was phenomenal, and I asked a bunch of questions about the show and she talked about a lot of things, and so that interview will be up shortly, so stay tuned for that. But she was a great person, and so I was really glad that her people reached out and was like, hey, do you want to interview the lead cinematographer for the show for the first 2 episodes? I'm like, yes. I was very nervous with that, by the way, but it went well. It went great, and so that'll be up shortly. Okay. So we're in Shellstown. We have the scene in the trailer where Luffy and Kobe are looking at the board of pirates, of the wanted poster board. Okay, so we see Alvida there, who they just eliminated. They could just take off her wanted poster. We see Bellamy. We see Cavendish. We see Foxy. We see Django. Django's poster's there, kind of buried. We don't really see it too well, but it is there. And so all the other government propaganda posters are in the town. Luffy's just like, oh my God, there's so, I can't believe, I think it's Kobe that's like, I can't believe there's so many pirates. And Luffy's like, yeah, you're right. Where's my face at? Okay, so there's Shellstown. This is really nice. This is really good. And then we just cut right to the bar scene. Okay, so we have the scene where they're looking at the posters, and we just cut to the bar. And so the bar scene is the big moment where things begin to change. So in the manga and the anime, Zoro already arrived on this island a while ago. In fact, part of the reason Luffy's going to Shellstown in the manga is because he knows that Zoro's there. Kobe, I think, tells him that Zoro is there, and he wants Zoro on his crew. He's already made up his mind. Luffy doesn't even know about Zoro yet. I mean, I think Alvida's crew mentioned it because, like, when Luffy first meets Alvida, Alvida's like, you're not Zoro. Okay, so he's heard the name, right? But he's not going to the island because he knows Zoro is there. He doesn't know Zoro's there yet. Zoro arrived earlier, and then he got into the whole kerfuffle with Helmeppo and the wolf. He kills the wolf. He ends up, in the yard, tied up to the post. And so all that already happened in the manga. In the anime, everybody kind of arrives at Shellstown at the same time. So Luffy and Kobe are in the bar. They're munching down, they're chowing down on all the food. They're bringing, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we already have our food. And Luffy's like, no, more food's good. So the food thing, really quick. There's a gag that works really, I think, well in a lot of shonen manga, and that's the protagonist eats a lot, like Goku, Luffy, just like shoveling a bunch of food in their mouth. It works in manga as a quick gag. I don't think it ever translated well into the anime, into live action. Like, they eat a lot. So I like how they don't make it a big thing. They're just like, Luffy's just eating a bunch of food and he eats more food and that's it. There's not like a giant scene of like Luffy shoveling the entire table into his mouth and then his whole body inflates and he's like, that was good. No, it's just Luffy eats a lot of food. It's one little scene and it goes away. It's like, that was done very well, I think. Okay, so Zoro's there in the bar. He walks in with the duffel bag of the upper half of Mr. Seven. You just see Mr. Seven's head sticking out. This makes sense. Zoro's a bounty hunter. He collected a bounty. He's now going to a marine base to cash in said bounty. It makes sense why he would be there. You also see Kabaji there as a member of Buggy's crew. He doesn't have any lines at this point, but he's just at the bar and he kind of hears Zoro and he's just like, oh, he killed me. Okay, I gotcha. So Kabaji's just there kind of listening and then he gets up and leaves. Okay, so just to kind of indicate what's going to happen later. Why was Kabaji at a marine base? Well, not at the marine base, but why was Kabaji at a bar in a marine town? This is also explained later when we get to Buggy. He's trying to get the map for Buggy, and he couldn't because Luffy, Zoro, and Nami were there, and they got the map first, and so Kabaji couldn't actually get it. But that's the reason he was there, okay? And then Nami is there as well. Nami's in the bar, and one of the Marines kind of comes over to her and kind of hits on her a little bit, and Nami's just like, no, you're too tall. And then there's another Marine who I believe is actually supposed to be Ukari. So Ukari is a character in the manga. He's like a seaman recruit. He's like the initial, like the little scrawny kid that's just like, oh, I don't know what to do. And he's like hoisting up the giant statue of Morgan. Okay. And so Morgan's like, hoist up my statue. And he's like, okay, sir. So in this one, he's a petty officer. So they upped his rank a little bit. Ukari got a promotion. And he's also a little older. Like he has a beard and everything like that at this point. He's not like some scrawny like teenager. He's like in his 20s, 30s. And so, Ukari walks by and he's way shorter and Nami looks at him and she's like, okay. And so Nami kind of goes over with this other guy, Ukari, and it's like the impression it's like she's flirting with him and it's just like, okay, where is this going? So things really break down in the bar area when Helmeppo walks in. So Helmeppo walks in, and he's got his sword, and he's got his super tailored suit and his long hair. They have the long hair initially in this one, okay? He doesn't have his trademark haircut yet. So he walks into the bar, and Rika is there. Rika's the little girl that has the rice balls for Zoro. So she goes over and is like, I made these for you. And Zoro's looking at him and just like, what's the stuff on top of the rice balls? Like, oh, it's chocolate. It makes everything better. And Zoro's just like, okay, I'm good. And then she turns to go away, kind of dejected, and then Helmeppo's right there and just runs right into Helmeppo. I think her mom's like, hey, Rika, come over here. And she's like, okay, Mom. Oh, I'm sorry. And then that's where Helmeppo gets the rice balls all over him, just like, you little brat. And then that's, of course, when Zoro has to step up, and then Helmeppo pulls out his sword, and he's just like, he really encapsulates. Helmeppo is played by Aidan Scott. He really encapsulates the stuck-upness of Helmeppo, of just like, my dad is Axehand Morgan. I control this town and everybody in it. Ha 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 ha. You can't hope to fight me. You'll be in trouble with the Marines if you fight me. And so Zoro gets up and he's got his 3 swords, and Helmeppo's like, 3 swords? Check him out. He's got 3 swords. I only need the 1. All right. And so, fight begins. Bar fight scene. We have a bar fight scene. Luffy and Kobe are watching the whole thing. Nami just takes this opportunity to, like, knock out Ukari and drag him away to take his outfit so she can dress up as a Marine and go incognito and to, like, sneak into the Marine base itself, okay? So, there's that scene there. I'm trying to capture every little moment here. The bar fight scene was really well done, just the flips, the choreography. It's kind of hard to explain it without just showing you the footage, and I can't really do that, so I'm just, like, just trust me, the scene is good. There is the scene also, before the fight happens, the scene with Rika, slamming into Helmeppo with the rice balls, they hit the floor. Zoro does have the scene where he picks it up and eats it, and just like, it was delicious. Now you eat one, like giving it to Helmeppo, and then apologize for the little girl. And Helmeppo's like, no, and then that's what begins the antagonization there. Okay, so they change the way that Zoro ends up in the yard. But I think it makes more sense this way. So in the original, Helmeppo comes in with a wolf that's like terrorizing the town. Zoro kills the wolf. I think Helmeppo essentially threatens Rika and her mother and the patrons in the bar. Like, I'm going to punish them for what you did unless, Zoro, you spend 30 days tied up in the yard. And Zoro's like, fine, I could do that, no problem. Because Zoro doesn't want to see innocent people get hurt, okay? So that's why he does it there. And then by the time Luffy shows up, Zoro's already been in the yard for like, a month at this point, right? So they change it. So because they got into this altercation, Helmeppo's like, my father is the Marine captain. He'll give you whatever you want, because Zoro's kind of won the fight. And Zoro's like, actually, I have some business with him then, all right? So then you cut to Morgan's office in the Marine base, and he's there, and he's sharpening his axe, and Morgan's played by Langley Kirkwood. He does a great job at it, and he's just, sharpening his axe, and he's just like, yes. All right, so I heard you beat up like 4 Marines critically injured and then beat up my son. All right, so if I'm going to say one of the biggest changes in characters in the episode, in the original, Morgan's is painted, I should say not Morgan's because that's a different character. Morgan is painted as an absolutely cruel despot. All right, like he's like very bad, like Marine levels, okay, where he's like forcing people to like build a giant statue of him and then hoist it on top of the actual Marine base, and like the people are getting killed and shit. He's not against like just murdering his freaking men or whatever. They dial down Morgan a bit. He's not that level of cruel, so you get the impression here that Morgan is a very hardcore, no-nonsense Marine captain. But it's not really to the level where he's like torturing his own men, all right? They dial him down a little bit there. And that was the one thing. I think Langley Kirkwood plays the character very well, but that was one thing in the story where I'm like, okay, so they don't make him as cruel. They make him like the kind of superior that's like, you don't want to goof around. You don't want to see him like, you're slacking off on your duties. He will reprimand you. But like, let me put it this way. In the anime, in the manga, if there's somebody that's supposed to be sweeping the floor and he's, taking a break and like taking a nap in the middle of the day, Morgan would probably not be any compunctions about picking that guy up and throwing him out of a window. Just like, it's like, you don't sleep on my watch. Ugh! This one would probably just, smack the guy awake and just give him a hard talking to, and just like, you're going to clean the latrines for the next 6 months. That's the kind of downplay, all right? But I do like the scene where Zorro's there meeting Morgan. It's a great scene because he's like, yeah, well, I have this bounty, so I would like to get paid now. And Morgan's like, well, you attacked like a bunch of my men and my son. And then Helmeppo speaks up and he's just like, yeah, daddy, he can't talk to me like that. And then Morgan just backhands his son, not with the axe, not with the actual blade, but with the metal part, just conks Helmeppo right in the face. Because his men are here right now. It's getting hot in this jacket. So his men are here right now, and he doesn't want to be seen as like, I'm not going to have this like, he's like, daddy, he was mean to me. It's like, I'm not handling that shit when my men are here, boy. And it just like knocks him off and just like, shut up. All right, daddy's talking. I'm handling this, okay? So he says, well, the punishment for that is usually 7 days in the yard, tied up with no food, no water. And Zorro's like, just give me my money. I'm going to get going. He actually asks Zorro to join the Marines. Morgan, he's just like, you're a pretty tough guy. I kind of like your style. And you honestly think about it, if you dial Morgan down a little bit, yeah, it would make sense. Like, oh man, Zorro's pretty tough. It's just like, join the Marines. We could use you. God, you'd be pretty tough. You're a pirate hunter already. You're a bounty hunter. It makes more sense for you to be a Marine than it does a pirate. You know what I mean? So Zorro once again has the line. McKenna, he says, he's like, I kind of have my own thing going on here. I kind of have my own thing going on. I really don't want to be part of an organization or anything like that. Morgan's like, all right, well, that's kind of a problem because one word from me, and you're not going to be able to collect any more bounties at any more Marine bases. So it's either find a new career or 7 days in the yard. Which do you pick? And then Zorro, of course, says, he's like, I guess I could, catch up on my sleep in the yard. So I like that scene because it's kind of like Morgan giving him the ultimatum of like, all right, because I was like, okay, if we're not doing the scene with the wolf and everything, how is Zorro going to end up in the yard tied up? There better be a good reason for that. There is, because it's like Morgan is a Marine captain. The way that you cash in your bounties is you have to go to a Marine base and collect the bounty. I would imagine there is a blacklist where it's like, don't accept bounties from these people. All right? It would make sense because bounties cannot be collected by pirates for other pirates. That wouldn't make any sense. So I bet in the One Piece world, it would make sense for pirates to hire certain bounty hunters to go and cash in, like like as a middleman, basically. Like, we can't go and cash in the pirate bounty, so you go and get it and bring it back to us. So bounty hunting might even be regulated. We're getting a lot more of bounty hunting stuff than we even get in the manga. So it makes sense. Like, Morgan is like, hey, one word from me, I'm a Marine captain, dude. I'm a high rank. I can say all Marine bases in the East Blue do not accept bounties from Zorro. And you won't be able to make any money. And that's how Zorro gets around. Zorro has to pay money for ships to go places. He needs money for food. He does need money. He's a bounty hunter for a freaking reason. He's not doing it just for fun. He's doing it for the money, okay? So Zorro's like, shit, all right. 7 days in the yard, no food, no water. Yeah, I could do that. And also, by the way, it's not 30 days. It's 30 days in the manga. 30 days is overkill. They're like I said, with the super strength and everything, they're going to dial things down a little bit in the live action just because to not make it too ridiculous. Pretty sure if you were like T-posing stuck like this in a yard with no food, no water for 7 days, pretty sure that would kill you. Pretty sure you'd be dead in like less than 3 days without water, and even more so if you're tied up like this, your body, like the blood flow is going to be all messed up. I'm pretty sure you'd be dead in maybe less than 2 days if you were a normal person, right? So maybe the 30 days is kind of overkill. And I like that, I do, because if they would have kept it the same, somebody's watching this show for the first time, they'd be like, oh my God, he was tied up for 30 days with no food. Seriously, he survives that? Oh my God, that's so stupid. I could see that reaction. So I'm glad 7 days is still pretty bad. It's a death sentence. It was an execution anyway. And we don't see him go the whole 7 days. Luffy saves him the next day, all right? So yeah, maybe you want to say that like Zorro, he wasn't on the cross for 30 days. He wasn't as exhausted. It's just like, it does make more sense realistically. Because, like, remember, in the original, it's anime, it's exaggerated. Zorro goes no food, no water for 30 days, and then he immediately gets untied and just beats the crap out of Morgan, and then goes back to the pub, eats a bunch of food, and calls it a day. Like, there's so much of that that's like, okay, that works in manga. Maybe in live action that doesn't work too well. That's kind of silly. So he's tied up in the yard overnight, which would still suck. Imagine being tied up like this to a post all night, for like, 12, 14 hours. That would still suck a big one, okay? Probably wouldn't kill you, but wouldn't be a very pleasurable experience, okay? So after that scene, we have a scene with Luffy and Kobe. It's now nighttime. I like the way that the island is lit. I'm sure a lot of it was done with special effects to, like, extend in the background. But Luffy and Kobe are kind of sleeping on the docks at, like, the ship. And then you could see in the background, you could see the whole island lit up at night. And it's like a giant, like, hill that goes all the way up to the Marine base at the top. So that was a cool effect. And so Luffy's like, I'm gonna sneak in and get the map. He looks over to, like, a sewer pipe he can get in. Luffy also has a line where he's like, man, that guy at the bar with the 3 swords, that guy was cool. I wonder where the 3rd sword goes. Huh. Because at this point in the show, we have not seen Zoro. He didn't use 3 swords against Mr. 7, so we don't see how he actually uses the swords. So it was like, Luffy's like, I wonder where the 3rd sword goes. In between his butt cheeks, maybe. Yeah, that would make sense, right? Kobe also brings up, he kind of has like a crisis of self at this point, where he's like, well, when I was with Alvida, yeah, I didn't have my freedom, but at least things made sense. I knew what I was doing for a living. So it was a little bit of I don't know if it's like, I don't know if like Stockholm Syndrome is the correct term to use here, but it's kind of like Kobe became complacent working for Alvida for so long. It's just like, okay, I guess this is just what I do now. I don't have to worry about thinking. I can just keep my head down and just clean the mace, and that's all I got to do. So he's like now heading out on his own, and it's just like this is a little bit of a crisis for him, a little bit of a panic attack moment, because he's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, joining the Marines. That's crazy. I don't know if I can actually do that. That's nuts. I don't know. I don't know about this, Luffy. And so Luffy's like, hey, don't worry, man. You got this. You could do this. So, to recap, Luffy's looking for the map, Zoro's tied up, and Nami infiltrates the Marine base, okay? She kind of sneaks in with her outfit with a bunch of other Marine soldiers, and they go into the base, okay? So now we're moving into the base itself. Helmeppo, we cut to the next day. Helmeppo walks out into the yard. That's the scene directly from the manga, where he actually has the Watto. So he goes up and, like, taunts Zoro, and Zoro's tied up, and he's just like, ugh. And at first I thought, like, that's a little bit, like, out of character, but then I noticed Helmeppo was actually holding the Watto Ichimonji, okay? Like, normally, like, if Helmeppo would have walked out into the yard, he's like, it's a little bit hot today. A little bit too hot for my taste. Do you want some water? Zoro, I think, normally he wouldn't care. He would just be like, I don't give a shit about you. And then he, like, snarls at him, and then Helmeppo holds up the Watto. And he's, like, messing with it. He's like, oh, what's so special about this sword? And then Zoro's like, I'm gonna, there's gonna be a moment where you're gonna get everything that's coming to you. It's just like, okay. So it's like, that makes sense. Because if Helmeppo's, like, just playing around with the Watto, like, it's not a big deal. That's, like, his prized possession, okay? So now we have the scene where Luffy and Zoro properly meet each other. Luffy is sneaking in through the sewers. He opens up the grate. He gets into the yard. Zoro's there tied up. And he's like, who are you? And Luffy looks around and he's like, I think Zoro says something like, are you lost? And he's like, I am lost. I was trying to get inside of the Marine base. Oh, you're that guy from the bar. Because keep in mind, Luffy at this point is looking for the map. He's not looking for, like, Zoro in particular, although he does think about Zoro like, oh, there's that cool guy with the swords, right? So Luffy asks Zoro to join his crew. And he's just like, I'm a bounty hunter. I'm a pirate hunter. I've killed your kind for, like, years at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to join your crew. And Luffy goes to untie Zoro. And he's just like, oh, okay. He's like, even if you untie me, I'm not joining your crew. He's like, yeah, you said so. It's just, if you want to be, because he says, I made a promise to Kuina. I made a promise to a friend. I want to be the greatest swordsman in the world. And Luffy doesn't laugh at him or anything. He's like, okay, I'll untie you. He's like, well, I'm not going to join your crew. It's like, no, it's fine. It's just, you have your thing that you're doing. I have my thing that I'm doing. You can't really do it if you're tied up. So, good luck with your sword thing. And so Luffy doesn't actually, is like, no, I won't take no for an answer. You're going to be part of my crew. No, he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, let's Zoro go. And he's just like, okay, good luck with your dream. And that's Luffy at the end of the day. He's just like, hey, here's a guy that wants to fulfill his dream, and he's being all tied up, so he can't do it. So it's like, oh, the least I can do is free him so he can go be the greatest swordsman in the world. And he didn't want to join my crew, but like, okay, that's whatever. We'll see what happens, So that's happened with that. That was a good scene there. It's a similar scene, like Kobe is not present, and like a lot of this stuff all kind of coalesces in the yard, and that it does eventually get there at the end of the episode, the big epic final fight scene. But yeah, this scene here where Luffy just meets Zoro, we see a lot of this in the trailer as well. I think it does a good job. I mean, Luffy is just like, oh, hey, I can tell you're a good guy. Yeah, you might be hunting pirates, you're a bounty hunter, but I can tell you're a good guy. And there's a running theme through this episode that does a really good job of this, and even Kobe brings it up in the boat earlier. He's like, but Captain Morgan was doing bad stuff, but he's a Marine. And so Luffy is like, in the way that Luffy can understand it in like a very simplified way, is like, there's good pirates and bad pirates. There's probably good Marines and bad Marines. It's beginning to open up the idea that the world of One Piece is not black and white. It's not pirates always bad, Marines always good. There's a lot of a gray area in there. And then there's pirates that are really good, and then there's Marines that are really bad. And so Luffy saying to Zoro, like, I can tell you're a good guy, is once again saying to the audience, like, yeah, Zoro is a bounty hunter. He brutally cut some dude in half earlier in like a bloody chunk and mess, but like, he's a good dude overall compared to like some of the other characters we're going to get in this story, like Captain Morgan and later on. Oh yeah, he's better, okay? So at the end of that scene, Luffy's just like, okay, good luck, and I'm going to go back in the sewers and try to find this map. Can you close the grate behind me? All right, thanks, man. See ya. And then Luffy just hops back in the sewer, and Zoro's there just like, okay. Just like, all right. We now have the scene in the map room. So there's the map room in the base. Nami kind of goes in there. She sneaks in and she's looking for a map to the Grand Line. All the maps she's looking are like standard East Blue kind of maps. There's another Marine in there that's like, hey, you're not supposed to be in here. And Nami's like, oh, I was sent to get a map from Axan Morgan and for the Grand Line. She's like, all the maps of the Grand Line are in the captain's office. So Nami's trying to like roll her deception a little bit here to get out of this. And then Ukari walks in and Ukari's like, I like how it takes him a second. Like, wait a second. You're the person from the bar that stole my uniform. And then Nami takes out her staff. It's actually an extending staff in this one. So in the original, Nami has like a 3-section staff that she has to like put together. That would probably not work for this. So it's just like extending staff. And I don't know actually how they do it. I'm assuming it's special effects. I'm assuming it's Nami takes out the staff. It's like this big. And then she just, and then like cut. Okay. Action. And then she actually has the staff. I'm thinking it was with special effects it did that. It didn't actually. It wasn't actually. Maybe it was a practical effect. Maybe the staff actually did it on its own. Maybe it did. But she takes out her staff. She beats the crap out of those 2 Marines, knocks them out, knocks out Ukari again. Poor Ukari. And she's like, okay, yeah, I guess I could deal with this. So she's looking for the maps. And then Luffy, as he's sneaking into the base, breaks into the map room, kind of falls down, and there's this funny scene. It actually kind of reminded me of a scene of Doctor Who. Remember the scene in Doctor Who when Donna and the Doctor see each other again, and they're like looking through the mirrors, like through the windows at each other? It's kind of like that scene where Luffy falls into the map room, Nami's on the other side, dressed as a Marine, and you can kind of see through the different maps, like it's like a grid pattern where you can kind of see through all the shelves, and Luffy and Nami are like, but they can still, they're trying to hide from each other, but they can still see each other every time they move. That's kind of a funny scene. Luffy immediately knows that Nami is not a Marine, and he's like, oh, you're not a Marine either. It's like, okay. So they begin to kind of like tag along right now, where Luffy's like, hey, I heard you guys talking. You're looking for my map. He's like, it's not your map, it's my map. He's like, no, it's my map. It's like, who is this kid? Because Nami's trying to, like, she's a professional cat burglar. She's a professional thief. And it's just like, what is this guy doing with the straw hat? It's like, that's not my map. You can't know. It's like, quit following me. It's like, okay. All right. So they get together like that. Now we get the scene with Helmeppo's ass. I know we were all waiting for this one. All right. This scene really encapsulates Helmeppo's character to me. It really does. It speaks to me. Okay. So Helmeppo is in his bedroom, completely naked. He has the Watto, and he's in front of a mirror, like, pretending to be a badass, like, samurai or, bounty hunter or something. He's just like, and it's just like, it reminds me of like a super edgy, because he's a very sheltered kid. I mean, not a kid. He's like in his early 20s in this, but it's just like, he's super sheltered, and he's like, oh, my dad's the Marine captain, so I get everything I want here. And so he's just like, I'm a badass samurai. I have a katana sword. So then Zoro walks in on Helmeppo, buck-ass naked. Helmeppo has a little Marine teddy bear on his mantle. He's like, oh, no! And so Zoro just really intimidatingly, like, walks over to Helmeppo, and Helmeppo's there just naked with the sword. He's like, are you gonna kill me? And then Zoro's just like, oh, no. I got something even worse for you. It's like, oh, I dare say. Okay, so a funny scene there. That was the nudity in the episode, ladies and gentlemen, if you were wondering where that was going to end up. Okay. Nami and Luffy are wandering through the Marine base. They're like ducking in and out. They're trying to hide from people. Nami is still dressed like a Marine. So they're like, okay, we got to get to Captain Morgan's office, and we got to open up. We got to find the map. It's somewhere in the office. And so then they run into Captain Morgan directly. They're walking in the hallway. Captain Morgan steps out of a hallway, and he's right in front of them. And just like, oh, Luffy stops like, oh, Axe Hand Morgan. I get it now. Okay, that makes sense. And he's just like, who are you? Where is this guy? What is he doing? Where is he wearing a straw hat? Why is he here? And Nami's like, yes, sir, I was delivering him to the brig. He was causing a disturbance in the town square. And Luffy's like, oh, yeah, I was. I was very disturbing. And Morgan just kind of looks down at Nami, and he's just like, I don't recognize you. And Nami's like, we're putting in a request from the 77th branch, sir, to work under you, Captain Axehand Morgan. And Morgan's like, that was a wise decision. Carry on. And so he gets up and walks away. The 77th Division is an actual division in One Piece. They did their homework on this, man. The 77th is Pudding Pudding's division. Commodore Pudding Pudding, who was the Marine that went to go deal with Arlong Park and was killed by the Fishman. So that's an actual, they didn't just like, oh yeah, I was sent from Marine Base 154 to the 153rd. No, 77th branch, real branch in the Marines. They did their homework on this. They didn't just name random shit for no reason. They just like, oh yeah, this is the 206th branch, and then over there, that's Kyle, he's the guy. Like, they have all the names and world building they could ever want in this world, so have at it. So that little mention, like 77th branch, I'm like, they used the real one. I like that. I love that. Okay. So Nami stole while Morgan was in front of them. You know, she stole the keys from Morgan. Like, okay, let's go. Get in the office. And then as they're walking away, Luffy's just like, I want to talk about I want to be a pirate and stuff. And, maybe you should join my crew. You're really good at what you're doing and you're really good at talking. You should join my crew. And then Nami like grabs Luffy and like shoves him up against a wall and just like, I hate pirates. They suck. And she doesn't say they suck, but he's like, I hate pirates. I hate them. And then she like storms off, and Luffy's just like, okay, huh. All right. So once again, Luffy listening. He doesn't like sit there and be like, oh, why do you hate pirates, Nami? What's wrong with that? He's like, no, he's just like, okay, like mental note, logging that. He doesn't forget. He's not like ignoring her, like he didn't hear her. He was just like fooling around. He heard her. He understands. It's gonna play later, okay? So we go into Captain Morgan's office, and that is applicable. Captain Morgan 'S, Morgan's office. They go into Morgan's office. This is where the statue was. I'm like, oh, they actually had the statue. The statue's cool. And the statue is of Morgan in this really epic like pose holding a baby Helmeppo. So it's like he's very cruel to his son, but he still does love his son. This is a thing with Morgan. He's a very abusive parent where he has the statue of him and his son, so you think like he's a good parent, but then he just smacks his son in the face. And then later there's going to be a scene with, in the Kobe Mepos cover story, he takes him hostage. So yeah, Morgan is not a good parent. You could say he loves his son, but it's a very warped, it's not good parenting, okay? But you see the statue in there. You see these giant portraits of Morgan like standing in front of like a battlefield with a Marine flag flying behind him. He's just like, I'm epic as hell, and so it's like, man, this guy really loves himself, and it's just like the ego playing up, which is something that ties back into actually Morgan's backstory with the Black Cat pirates and Kuro hypnotizing him, is why he has that just insane level of ego. All right, that's actually explained later. So they're in the office. Behind the desk, this is a really cool set piece. There is a huge like sigil of the Marines, and the Marine sigil is touched up a little bit. It looks a little bit more elaborate than in the manga. In the manga, it's just like the two seagulls and then the symbol over it, like that little like the hands or like the little claws. It adds a little bit more flourish to it. There's a little bit more detail, but it's like a metal like plaque on the wall behind his desk, and it's inlaid with a bunch of different axe arms. So like Morgan has like 7 different axe arms. He's like, oh, which one am I going to use today? All right, this one needs sharpened. I'll use this one. You know what I mean? He has all these different kind of axe arms and stuff. So that's pretty cool. He has like a bunch of this thing that's set behind his desk. Like, it's intimidating as hell. Like, if you got called into Captain Morgan's office, you're sitting there in the chair. He has this giant desk, and behind it is this huge sigil of all these axe arms. He has literally a grinder, an axe grinder next to his desk as like part of his desk to like sharpen hhis axe hand. So it's like, okay, this is intimidating. Like, I could see Morgan just like grinding the axe and be like, so, Petty Officer Ukari, you were knocked out on the job twice. He's like, yes, sir, I'm sorry, I suck. He's like, look at this axe. Look how shiny it is. So that is kind of intimidating there if you could do that. All right. So Nami messes around with the desk. They open it up. They find the safe. It has the world government sigil on the safe, and Nami's trying to break into it. But at the same time, it's discovered that they have broken in. Okay, so it's like, okay, Morgan now learns about it, like the other Marines come up and just like, there's intruders in the Marine base. And Morgan's like, sound the alarm. And so the alarms begin to be sounded. Everyone's freaking out. And Luffy and Nami are there, like Nami's trying to crack the safe. She's like, I can't rush this. Like, I can't hurry. And Luffy's like, okay, well, they're coming. And Morgan is like smashing the door open, like Shining style with the axe. And Luffy's like, okay, I have an idea. And he, once again, super strength, he reaches down and it's like, I feel like manga Luffy could just be like, 1, 2, just rip out the whole safe. But, you know, it's like, and he's like pulling and his body is like stretching as he's pulling and he finally rips the safe out. Nami and him go careening out the window and they land in the yard. It goes safe and then Luffy and then Nami lands on top of Luffy. I'm gonna suspend disbelief on that one and just assume Luffy is the best airbag that you could possibly have. He's obviously not gonna get hurt. Nami's fine. You know, so they get sent flying out the window. They land in the yard, and then the fight begins. The final battle of the episode. All the Marines come storming out, and they're like, "Oh, what have you?" And they begin to fight with swords and cutlasses, and Nami and Luffy are just beating the crap out of Marines in the yard. Zoro walks in, and he's not joining the fight. Zoro just walks in, and he's like, and by the way, Zoro broke into Helmeppo's room himself, so he doesn't need Luffy to get his swords back. Zoro already has his swords. So he's just walking in the yard just like, okay, not touching that. He just like walks by, you know, because he said to Luffy, like, I'm not joining your crew. I'm not doing anything like that, so as soon as I get my swords back, I'm getting the hell out of here. So he's about to walk away, but he decides to stop. He stops and just like, okay, all right, he did help me. He did let me go. He said I'm a good person. You know, he didn't judge me immediately. I should help these guys out, all right? So we get this fight scene here with Marines, and then eventually Morgan arrives. And Morgan has this speech where he brings up his backstory. And I'm like, I'm glad they included that. He's like, I'm Captain Axehand Morgan. I single-handedly defeated the Black Cat pirates. I single-handedly brought in Kuro of 1,000 plans. And I single-handedly protect Shell's Town from the likes of you pirate scum. And I'm like, okay, that works. Single-handedly, because he was hypnotized to think he defeated Kuro single-handedly. So he has this huge ego. And he has a scratch. You could see the scratch from the cat claws that Kuro laid on him. He's seeing that on his arm as he's pulling up his axe arm. And he's like, let's fight, all right? So the fight is on. Nami is like handling mostly Marines in the background that are fighting and just like coming in like, and charging in, and Nami's like knocking him back and everything. And it's mostly Zoro and Luffy that fight Morgan. There's a point where Zoro kind of holds his sword up to Luffy like, kind of like, I got him, don't worry, I'll take him on. So he goes to attack Morgan, and they can't really beat him. Like there's a scene where Luffy fires a gum pistol, and Morgan just grabs his freaking hand and just pulls him in. So Morgan is definitely painted as more of a threat in this a little bit, where he's actually able to like block Luffy's attacks and stuff like that. But when Luffy and Zoro finally end up working together, they manage to defeat him. Where in the manga, Zoro's the one that just cuts down Morgan by himself after being starved for 30 days, as a matter of fact. In this one, they have a little bit of a combo move where Zoro kind of slashes at Morgan, kind of knocks him down a little bit, and then Luffy jumps up on Zoro's back and then lands a punch right in Morgan's face, and that's what knocks him out. So I like that. I like that change a little bit. It was really cool in the manga to see Zoro just cut him down by himself, but it was nice to see... Oh, no, he uses whip. He doesn't punch him. He uses whip, and that knocks out Morgan in the face. He uses Gum no whip, knocks him out, and then that's the end of the fight. And that's the scene where in the trailer it's like, it was like Gum whip, what was that? You know, and Luffy's like, all great fighters call out their finishing moves. Zoro's like, no, they really don't, but okay, whatever, you do you. So that's the fight. And like I said, I watched the show to actually get the full breadth of the choreography. Me describing it to you secondhand is not going to really do it justice, but it really works. Luffy's like, and you know, even Inaki said, like, how Luffy fights. He does this with his arm, like, I can do that, no problem. I just have to get the body mannerisms, the language down with fighting, and he's just like, bam, uppercutting people, and this is where the effects are in place, or he'll like uppercut somebody and his arm will stretch and then go back. It's really quick, so you can't even really notice it. It's like a rubber band. Take a rubber band and just let it go, and it goes right back. You know, there's not a lot of time to really see the effect, okay? So he's just beating the crap out of it. The fight scene, I think, worked great, okay? So after this, they go back to the docks. They're getting the hell out of Dodge. They escape the Marine base, and they're like, they're going to be coming after us. So they get back to the ship that Nami stole from Buggy. That's the one they're taking. Zoro picks up the safe. He's just like, how are we going to get this safe out of here? And Zoro's like, I got it. And he just like overarms it. Once again, this is freak show kind of once again, this is a level of strength normal people wouldn't have, but not on the level of like in the anime itself. So I think it's a happy middle ground, really. So they get back to the ship, and Luffy's like, well, we have to wait for Kobe. He's my friend. And then he's like, oh, the Marines are going to be here any moment. And then Helmeppo shows up with, like, dual pistols. They didn't have the hammer gun. They cut the hammer gun out of the episode, so I got to give it, negative 10 out of 10 stars. Literally unwatchable. No hammer gun. So Helmeppo comes in. His hair has been cut. So Zoro cut his hair, but not the whole way. So he had long hair. And so Zoro cut his hair like this, but his hair in the back is still there. So it's a really shitty haircut. Even shittier than the haircut I have right now, okay? So I felt kind of good. Like, oh, Helmeppo has a crappier haircut than even I got. Okay, that's good. So he walks in, and he's like, okay, you're not going anywhere. I'm not going to let you go. And then Kobe just shows up and then just decks Helmeppo right in the face and knocks him out. And I'm like, I like that scene. I like the scene Kobe finally stood up for himself. He punches out Helmeppo and he tells Luffy, I'm going to stay and I'm going to be a Marine and I'm going to try to make the Marines a better thing. I'm going to be a good Marine. And Luffy looks at him and he's just like, of course you will. And, this is also the scene where they're loading the safe on the ship. We saw that in the trailer with like, he's like, careful with that. And he's just like, oh, sure. Actually, wait, I don't take orders from you. And then Luffy's like, I'm sensing a little tension amongst the crew. And he's like, we're not a crew. That was even earlier. When Morgan steps out into the yard, he's like, oh, the prisoner, the pirate hunter, and the infiltrator. I could have sworn you're all working together. And then Luffy comes up and he's just like, of course, we're a crew. And he's like, no, we're not a crew. Not together. Just like, no, there are just 3 people that just ended up here. We are not an actual crew. So there's a little bit of a running gag there. I don't know if that'll continue with other episodes, but we'll wait to see. So, we have 2 scenes at the end of the first episode. So the Luffy and Kobe say their goodbyes. Kobe shoves off the ship and they get going, and Kobe stays behind at Shellstown. 2 extra scenes. 1 scene, we see Garp's ship with a really badass, like the bulldog figurehead, looks way more intimidating here. We see Garp receiving a call on his Den Mushi. And the Den Mushi looks great. We already saw that in the promotional images. I thought it worked great here. He picks it up and he's just like, okay. Shellstown was invaded, and they stole a map of the Grand Line. There's a pirate with a straw hat. So immediately, Garp knows it's Luffy. And they even mention Bogart is there. A camera pans out, and Bogart's in the office, Garp's right-hand man. And Bogart's like, is it about Baroque Works? It's like, we've been chasing that shadow organization for years. We haven't found anything about them yet, but we know about Luffy. So they're already setting up stuff for Baroque Works for Season 2. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a Season 2. I'm fairly confident in that, because they're already setting this crap up already. Okay, so that was the scene with Bogart and Garp. I think they look great, and they walk off screen and just like, okay, pirate with a straw hat. We don't know Garp is Luffy's grandpa yet, but we know he's involved. And then the last scene of the episode is Kabaji meeting Buggy. And so we cut to Buggy's tent. Kabaji's there on the spotlight, and he's like, I tried to get the map, Captain, but there were 3 of them. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get the map. They were too strong. I had to, like, all this stuff was going on in the background. They were fighting against Morgan. I couldn't get the map. It was in the safe. They had the safe the whole time. And so you see Buggy, and very tense circus music starts playing in the background. And you just get the shot where Buggy's in the chair, like in the opening shot of the manga, where he's there like this. It's in silhouette as the light's not on him. And then the light slowly shows up, and then you see his bounty poster, Buggy, 15 million. And he's there, and he just flips the poster away, like in the 4th wall kind of thing. And he's just like, I want my map. And I'm gonna get it. And he starts laughing. And the music and Jeff Ward's portrayal as Buggy, oh my God, it's like he's the Joker. I really was getting direct Joker vibes from this dude. The music plays. We get a preview of like what's going to happen in the season. We get a little bit of a preview. We see Kuro's speed. We see Nezumi. We see Zoro queuing up 3,000 worlds against Mihawk. And the ending credits, the music's great, but the ending credits are geography. The ending credits are just maps of the East Blue. We see the Polestar Islands, the Goa Kingdom, Fuchsia, and the Goa Kingdom itself, Shellstown, Dawn Island, Yotsuba Island, Goat Island. We see all the different scenes on the map, and I'm like, they bookended it with geography. God bless them. And then that's it. And then the end credits happen where we see Yasop the Great. Okay. That was a lot. That was, an hour and 40 minutes? Oh my god. I don't know if every episode review is going to be this long. I don't know if every episode review is going to be this damn long, but the first one had to be. I have not read anything yet. Literally, my day. I woke up, watched it, came down here and did this. So it's noon. I haven't eaten yet other than the cereal. So I'm really hungry. I gotta go eat. But I have not even looked on Twitter or anything on like what the reception for this is, what other people are saying. I have not seen anything yet. Okay? So, but this is, you know what? I'm glad because you know what? Even if there were, like, let's say there's people that had a lot of problems with this. Maybe there was somebody out there like, oh my God, I don't like this scene. I don't like this scene. I don't like this scene. I'm still glad I'm uploading this with my initial reaction with no other input, because this is my genuine reaction to the series. This is how I felt watching it. I was pumped. I was excited. I was having fun with it. It was a roller coaster. I have no idea what the other episodes are. I know episode 2 will be all about Buggy, because when I did my interview with Nicole yesterday, she mentioned that the first 2 episodes she worked on, that was this episode, obviously, and then Buggy's episode. So Buggy's episode is all going to be 2. So that interview will be out either later today or tomorrow. So look forward to that. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to eat my lunch. I'm going to be watching the rest of the season. And I will be making videos for the episodes as I make videos for the episodes. I don't have a schedule for them or anything like that. But there is a break. One Piece is on break next week anyway, the manga, so we have more time to do it. So I'll get them out when I get them out, and let me know on what was your initial reaction to this. Great episode. Great way to kick it off. I think everything came together. It's like the first introduction to live action for this, I think, kind of broke the curse for this. This is way better than when I watched the first episode of Cowboy Bebop. Let's just leave it at that. All right, I am very hungry and very thirsty. I am going to go do the things that remedy those situations. Thanks, everybody. Techie signing out. Bye.